Jenny! Sarah!
Jenny!
The story begins with a backcountry forest ranger with whom his seniors try to contact, but due to some unspecified reasons, the ranger doesn't respond to them on his radio and goes into the woods after sticking a note on a board which states, "I owe this land," and after that, the ranger went missing and was never seen again. Lennon got a job as a backcountry forest ranger, and she is very happy about it. On her way to the national park, she comes across a black deer in the road, and the very next moment, the deer vanishes into thin air, leaving Lennon baffled. Sometime later, she arrives at the training center where she meets another ranger named Jackson who congratulates her on getting her dream job.
Congrats on the dream job.
Lennon appreciates it by shaking hands. Ranger Zhang explains to the newly recruited rangers that they are about to be stationed at their locations for the next 90 days, which can make a person awfully forgetful. Meanwhile, Lennon seems disoriented and keeps staring at the picture of a missing ranger. Zhang concludes her speech with a remark, "Leave nothing but footprints, and take nothing but memories." Mr. and Mrs. Finley meet Lennon and tell her that they are going to hike in the wilderness.
Your family must be so proud of you.
Yep.
Subsequently, Lennon and Jackson are sent to their locations by a helicopter. Lennon arrives at her camp where the previous missing ranger was stationed. She begins unpacking her belongings to spend the next 3 months here in this national park alone, as Jackson is stationed at a different location. She cleans the tent, makes her bed, and gets ready to do her job. At night, she looks at a map of the forest, and next to it, sticks a photo of her missing younger sister named Jenny, who went missing in this forest a few years ago. Afterward, she turns off the lamp, hitting the hay. The next day, Lennon prepares to leave for patrol and reports the details to her superiors. Then, she goes into the forest to hike Black Mountain Trail into the lookout. She listens to an audiobook where the narrator describes how countless individuals have vanished after venturing into Alvarez National Park, a notorious hotspot where hikers disappear without a trace. Despite this, there is no official record of those who go missing after entering the forest. Strangest of all, everyone remains silent, even though they know the truth. On her way to patrol, Lennon's radio begins acting up, prompting her to check its batteries. She rummages through her pack for spare batteries, but doesn't find any, which leaves her utterly disappointed. She continues her patrol with a flashlight. Soon, she hears a rustling sound nearby and decides to investigate. However, there is nothing to be afraid of because it turns out to be the same black deer she encountered earlier on her way. Just then, her walkie-talkie begins making noise, so she checks for its batteries. To her astonishment, she finds there are none inside, as she had already removed them. Not long after, Jackson shows up and asks Lennon to join him at his camp, where he will give her spare batteries, and they can have dinner together.
I would have got a few in my pack if you want them. I know a great spot. Come on.
They sit near a cascade. Lennon asks Jackson how many seasons he has worked for Black Country. Jackson replies that it is his 10th year. Then he asks Lennon why she chose the National Park Service.
Why the National Park Service?
Lennon doesn't give him an explicit answer and says,
Sure you know a lot about me already?
The next day, Jackson hands her a pair of new batteries for her radio and sees her off. Afterward, Lennon returns to her camp, completely spent. She lies on the floor and dozes off. Ever since arriving here, Lennon's mental health has begun deteriorating because she has started having visions of her missing sister, Jenny, who disappeared in this very forest, just like everyone else. This is why Lennon chose the National Park Ranger job, to find out what actually happened to her sister. At night, she spots a shadowy figure outside her tent, which leaves her in a state of fear. Seconds later, a terrified man bangs on the door. urging Lennon to open up and help him. Lennon gingerly opens the door and finds a hiker who seems horrified. The scared man asks Lennon to hurry.
We have to hurry.
Sir, I need you to let go of my arm.
Meanwhile, the panicked man flees back into the dark forest, prompting Lennon to go after him. Sometime later, the panicked man disappears, and Lennon expeditiously reports the incident to her superiors. Shortly after, she hears the man calling out to his girlfriend, Sarah. She follows the voice and finds the man standing with one arm injured. The horrified man explains to Lennon that his girlfriend Sarah was right there, and the very next moment she wasn't. The following day, other backcountry rangers arrive at the location after being informed by Lennon. Ranger Zhang reveals that the missing girl's name is Sarah Greenberg. According to her friends, she was at camp 1 minute and vanished the next. Moments later, Zhang and the other rangers begin setting out to search for Sarah. Lennon expresses her desire to join them, but Jackson orders her to stay at her camp until her foot is properly healed. Lennon becomes down in the dumps. She comes upon Sarah's driving license lying on the table, and she secretly keeps it in her pocket. Afterward, she heads back into the forest in search of Sarah Greenberg, ignoring Jackson's orders. In the forest, Lennon finds herself alongside her parents, searching for Jenny. This shows that Lennon hasn't forgotten the incident yet. She drinks some water from her bottle, trying to quiet her restless mind. The entire day has passed and darkness has fallen, but Lennon still hasn't found the missing Sarah. A short while later, she spots a young woman standing in the dark. Lennon cautiously approaches her and realizes it's Sarah Greenberg, who went missing a couple of days ago. Sarah asks if Lennon is real.
Sarah?
Are you real?
For a moment, Lennon is speechless, then lets Sarah embrace her. Soon after, the entire search team returns to Lennon's location. Mrs. Zhang admires Lennon for finding Sarah, but also scolds her for disobeying Jackson's orders. Ranger Zhang orders Lennon to stay at her camp for 5 days and not step out until she is physically fit. Nonetheless, Lennon sticks a note on the board for any hikers who might arrive in her absence and, disregarding Zhang's warning, ventures back into the forest, this time in search of her missing sister Jenny. Lennon sets up camp and prepares to spend the night. However, her sleep is disturbed by noise from the radio. She turns it off and steps outside the tent, only to notice something moving in the bushes. Fearfully, she retreats back inside. Seconds later, she senses something lurking around her tent, which makes her extremely nervous. She bravely tells the lurking entity that she is a national park ranger and she has a gun.
Hello? I'm the National Park Ranger.
Shortly after, the lurking entity moves away, giving Lennon a sigh of relief. She quickly informs Jackson about this incident. Jackson tells her that it might be a disoriented hiker and orders her to go after him. So she takes a flashlight and goes out in search of the supposed disoriented hiker, and while looking for him without fail, she happens to arrive at Bench Lake. She immediately contacts Jackson, telling him that she is lost and has arrived near Bench Lake. Jackson, who doesn't seem to be Jackson, tells Lennon that she isn't lost. She is where she needs to be, leaving Lennon perplexed. Then, Jackson says, "Leave nothing, take nothing and kill nothing." Jittered, Lennon makes her way back to the tent, but trips over a stone and collapses to the ground, causing her to faint. In her visions, she discovers her little sister Jenny, who wakes her up. She barely gets up while her head is spinning. She draws a map on the sand and tries to locate her tent. Afterward, she retrieves her radio while a humanoid entity crawls down the tree in the background. She senses a presence behind a tree, prompting her to investigate. She approaches the tree only to find Sarah hiding behind it. Sarah again repeats the same question to Lennon if she is real. Lennon becomes apprehensive while continuously telling herself that this is not real. Just then, Jenny whispers into her ears, asking her to replace the radio or they will keep her. So Lennon leaves the radio where it was and goes on her way. After walking some distance, she runs into Mr. and Mrs. Finley, who came to hike in the forest. She rushes to them and does her level best to grab their attention.
Hey, I'm here! I'm here!
But to her amazement, the Finley couple can neither hear nor see her, making Lennon feel ignored. Lennon's mental state begins to visibly worsen day by day as she bites her nails like a woman possessed. Shortly afterward, she discovers a ranger in the woods and calls out to her, only to find the ranger looking exactly like her. The imposter Lennon ends Mrs. Finley's life right before the real Lennon's eyes, causing her to flee in terror. After escaping, Lennon stumbles upon many posters of missing persons attached to the trees, which leaves her shocked. Among the posters, she discovers one for Jenny. Moments later, Lennon finds Mr. Finley feasting on his wife's entrails, a sight that horrifies her. However, the very next moment, the Finley couple returns to life as Lennon sits before them, cross-legged. Seconds later, she gets up and pulls a gun on Mrs. Finley, intending to end her life, but can't bring herself to pull the trigger and lets them go. Lennon clutches Jenny's missing poster, missing her deeply. On the walkie-talkie, someone tells Lennon that her sister isn't lost and urges her to kill the Finley couple, warning that otherwise they will keep her sister forever. Distraught, Lennon discovers a map hidden beneath the sand near Bench Lake. She follows the instructions and manages to reach her tent. Outside her tent, she finds Jenny's shoe, which she hangs from her pants buckle before entering the camp. When she opens the door, she is shocked to find that the inside is her own house. Lennon sees her family picture hanging on the wall. Afterward, she enters the living room and discovers her mother serving breakfast to little Lennon and Jenny. After a short while, Lennon finds her mother eating her own flesh, which leaves her frightened. Later, she enters the bathroom and finds her father standing in the bathtub. The very next moment, he stabs himself with a knife, ending his life. Lennon is terrified and enters another dark room, where she finds her little sister Jenny standing in clogged water. Lennon apologizes to Jenny for not watching over her. She tells Jenny she never stopped looking for her since she was lost in the forest. Jenny says, "It was not your fault."
I never stopped looking for you.
And after saying this, she disappears. Sometime later, Annie Zhang appears in the room. Lennon asks her if she is real, to which Annie replies, "Yes, I am real." Annie reveals that whoever they are, they forcibly keep people there. She tells Lennon that she knows everything about them, but can't do anything about it. Annie retrieves Jenny's shoe from Lennon and confesses that she let them take Jenny, but now she will not let them keep Lennon there. She says a final goodbye to Lennon, and shortly after, some hands appear and drag Lennon underwater. Lennon struggles and resurfaces, finding herself in Bench Lake, revealing that there is an illusory world beneath the lake. Outside the lake, Lennon discovers Jenny, but the very next moment, Jackson shows up and helps her out of the water. She asks Jackson why he didn't tell her everything despite knowing all the truths. Jackson, however, avoids a direct answer and asks his superiors to dispatch a team. Lennon is now in the assembly hall with the other rangers, staring at the missing poster of Annie Zhang. She knows Annie sacrificed her life to save her. Lennon returns to her tent and carves her name into the table. In the next scene, a search team arrives and hands her missing person pictures of individuals lost in the mysterious forest. She sets out to search for them. After covering some distance, she finds a hiker named James standing by the mysterious lake, facing the water. James turns around and asks Lennon if she is real, leaving her stunned for a moment.
Are you real?
Lennon shakes her head, revealing that she has come to terms with the strange rules of the forest. Afterward, she continues on her way, leaving James to himself, and this is where the movie ends.